Okay, well, here we are at the 22nd Annual La Jolla Energy Conference, and delighted to welcome back Hesketh Streeter, who has been to La Jolla and here to our conference several years, but this year he's assumed a new position about a year ago at the National Oil Company of Chile, ENAP. So Hesketh, tell me a little bit about what's happening in Chile. Why did you move to ENAP and take this job? Give us some background on Chile.
Yeah, actually that's a very interesting question. I think I'm one of the few foreigners in that kind of position in a national oil company, certainly in Latin America.
Yeah.
It's a bit of a long story, a lot of history. As you know, when I left BP, I went to work for Wood Mackenzie, and we actually did quite a lot of consulting for ENAP, starting in 2009. And actually it was through that connection that I got to know the workings of ENAP.
Okay.
And to be quite honest with you, it would be impossible just to parachute somebody in like a foreigner into a national oil company with having done some work with them over the 3 or 4 years.
Right.
If I hadn't done that, it would be almost impossible to understand the culture, the way they work, how do you manage the relationships with the government, how you manage the relationships with the union. So that's been a fascinating experience. And also, when I joined in April of last year, they also changed out the head of refining. So they actually put a new team in.
Okay.
And ENAP last year was struggling. They had a loss of $300 million.
Wow.
Basically from the refining side of the equation. The upstream has always made money.
Okay.
And the debt was about $4 billion, and that's actually been inherited through what I mentioned earlier today in the conference, is what happened with Argentina.
Oh, the cuts to Chile.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that has seriously impacted the Chilean or the ENAP business. So apart from that, there's a major challenge of what we do in southern Chile.
Well, let's pick up, because the cuts from Argentina, I think, are important to something you presented today, which was very interesting, and that's unconventionals in Chile, but specifically in southern Chile. So why is ENAP, and why are you putting such a focus on that?
In reality, because we've got no choice.
Okay.
Through the exploration that ENAP itself has done, and through exploration through the CEOPS, Apache, for example.
The CEOPS are the mechanisms
it's the contractual structure for foreign companies to come and explore in Chile.
It's a concession?
Yeah.
Okay.
Basically, it's the exploration period is 7 years,
Okay.
3 years plus 2, and then in the event that you have a commercial find, then you've got 25 years to produce it.
Okay.
Is that the original idea was, of course, to look for gas.
Conventional gas.
Conventional gas, look for gas full stop.
Okay.
On the conventional side. And unfortunately, the conventional pools have all been found. There's some gas being found, but nothing that's going to basically become a game changer to supply the deficit that we have with the region. And of course, we mustn't forget about Methanex.
Okay.
And the contractual obligations that not only ENAP has, but also some of the other players in Argentina.
Methanex is the
Methanex is the methanol producer.
Based in
Punta Arenas.
Okay.
Because Methanex was being supplied from Argentina by Pan American, by Plus Petrol, by Wintershall, by YPF, by Petrobras. And actually, one of the reasons that you have a YPF, Apache initially, Pan American, is actually to some degree has to do with obligations to Methanex. So it's quite a complicated
Okay.
scenario that is being played out. But the bottom line is that it's pure need.
You have no choice.
We've got no choice whatsoever. And so we've got a pretty good grip of what's going on in the basin. We have a good idea where the plays are. And right now, just above the source rock in the Cretaceous, in the Paleocene, so we focus in on the G7.
Okay.
It's a glauconitic horizon, and it's complicated. There's pinch outs, etc., etc. But in the next month and a half, we're going to find out if it's going to work or not.
Excellent. And so I think you mentioned during the conversation you actually have done some fracking, right? The first couple of fracks that have occurred.
we did, I call them mini fracks, about 2 years ago. And it was in what I call the sweet spots. We used 2 old wells, we were able to go in. And I guess the best way to describe it, the results were encouraging.
Okay.
So it gives us a degree of confidence that the 4 wells that we're going to frack over the next 3 to 4 months in Arenal will produce gas. And of course, during the drilling phase, when we drilled through the G7, there was gas shows, etc. But the $1 million question is, will they flow? How productive will they be, etc., etc. Because, like I showed this morning, if we get to 250,000 meters cubed a day, then that's a big, big success.
Yeah.
But I think most probably, at least with the vertical wells, I think you're looking between a plateau of between 50,000 and 60,000 cubic meters a day. And with some liquids too, maybe 4 to 5 meters cubed of liquids, and that will make a difference. If it's just dry gas, then the economics just don't work.
Okay, you need liquids.
So we definitely need liquids.
And you'll have a better idea, and you said the next, second half of this year?
Yeah, exactly, because the next plan is we'll most probably drill a couple of deviated wells, 60 degrees, and then the next step will to see how a horizontal well works in the G7.
Let me ask a final question. Because of some of what you're doing, I think a lot of what we've talked about at the conference is this whole U.S. boom and the idea of replicability. During our panel, you doubted. You were an optimist about the opportunity, but you doubted the replicability of the U.S. model. Explain that a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, there's many issues. I think the first one is ownership of mineral rights. Okay. I think that makes a huge difference.
And that's pretty unique to the United States.
Exactly.
Okay.
The second is actually pace. I guess the best way to describe it is pace, operational pace.
Okay.
One very good example I think here in the US is that what was the initial catalyst behind the shale gas boom? It was actually high Henry Hub pricing.
Okay.
The market in the Henry Hub dropped through the floor, and you see how quickly the US industry switched to shale oil.
Yeah.
And of course what you have now is almost the ideal scenario. You've got liquids and you've got associated gas. And the amount of associated gas really means, well, do you need to continue playing in shale gas? Mm-hmm. At least, new entrants or getting new acreage. And I don't think you could do that switch anywhere else but the US.
Okay.
For example.
Yeah.
So, transport yourself into Latin America, whether it be in Argentina, or in Brazil, and then you've got Mexico, Colombia, and I think it's this operational pace I guess the way I'm saying it's not repeatable is because it might take, I'd say Argentina is a 10-year time frame.
Okay.
Brazil, maybe even longer.
Yeah.
Mexico's an interesting case in mind, but I think what's going to happen there's going to be competition for funds between funds for crude and funds for gas. And, you know, if you can get reasonably competitive gas from across the border,
Right.
why would you invest huge sums of money in unconventional gas in northern Mexico?
And Pemex has traditionally been focused on oil, so...
Exactly.
Yep.
And they've got so much to do
Yep.
on their whole side of the equation.
Yep. That's great. Hesketh, we look forward to having you back next year to let us know about the results from Chile and the unconventional play.
Yeah, it's always a pleasure.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Jeremy.